Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone in the 5 continents, and welcome to another edition of our International English Online Meetings. As usual, please let me share my screen so we can follow up what we are going to do today. Okay, let me open just a minute, please. It's frozen. Give me a couple of seconds. Wait, there is something wrong. Wait a minute. Okay, as I was saying before, let me share my screen so you can see what is going to happen today. So welcome to our world community of educators. This is our 121st International English Online Meeting, September 22nd, 2024. We got a new picture. I hope you like it. You see guidance, gratitude, trust, reverence, care, respect, affection, tolerance, and love. I found this beautiful photograph in internet. Well, if you want to watch the other past editions of our international meetings, you can find them in our YouTube channel. And special thanks to Dennis Montaño from Ecuador, Universidad Yachay Tech, who is allowing us to use his Zoom account. So who are the speakers, the next speakers? Let's see. So on October the 6th, we'll have Eugenia de Loza from Argentina talking about teaching your students to think critically. Then somebody from India, Dr. Devina Krishna, she will be talking to us on October the 20th about this interesting topic, leveraging technology for the sustenance and revival of endangered Indian languages. Then Monica from Argentina on November the 3rd, it is a secret. She will be talking to us on November the 3rd. Then on November the 10th, Eugenia Carrion will be talking about Mind Your Language. And then Debra Suarez, the last one from the USA, will be talking to us about sharing wisdom, inspiring new possibilities, EL teacher leadership and teacher professional learning groups. And finally, in December, we will have our New Year, Happy Merry Christmas, New Year's facts. Okay, so who is our speaker today? Well, it's our good friend, Randall Davis from the USA, and Mary Scholl from Costa Rica, and James Papel from Canada. Something about my dear friend Randall Davis has worked in the TESOL arena for the past 35 years as a teacher, materials developer, and a teacher trainer, specializing in educational technology, language assessment, and soft skills development. He has been an invited speaker to many diverse places, including Saudi Arabia, China, Peru, Japan, Mexico, Thailand, and throughout the United States. Look at that beautiful photograph. Let me see, there is somebody here waiting to be allowed. Okay, he's also the creator of the website Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab, and he currently teaches at the English Language Institute at the University of Utah. In his free time, Randall enjoys trail running in the mountains, gardening, and learning each day from his mistakes. I love that. And finally, James Papel is the associate director with Centennial Colleges School of English and Liberal Studies. He has a master in TESOL. And also our good friend, Mary Scholl, Executive Director at the Institute for Collaborative Learning in Costa Rica, facilitator at the Center for Holding Space, and Senior Academic Consultant at National Geographic Learning Latin America. So thank you, dear Randall, James, and Mary for being here, and everyone who is present. We hope we enjoy this wonderful presentation. So, dear Randall, the screen is yours. Mary and James Papel, go on.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. And it's certainly a pleasure to visit with you, especially with James and Mary and others that are here in attendance. One of the things that I found that the only reason to come to a live broadcast like this is if you have a part in the discussion. In other words, you could just watch it later through YouTube or Facebook or something like that. So one of the things I want to try to do is accomplish today is as I give the presentation, I'm going to have James and Mary address some of the questions as I go through my presentation as well. But if Mary and James, if you can help me as well, anything that you see that comes up in the chat, and that's why we have the chat, is being able to share your voice. And so Mary, James, and others, if you see something that I'm not addressing, something comes up in the chat, feel free to interject and interrupt because that's the whole purpose. As I mentioned, you could watch us later on YouTube, but I certainly want to bring in live voices because you probably have questions that you would like to have addressed. So let me go ahead and begin the presentation today and get right into that and into our discussion. One of the things when I think, and let me go back actually right to the beginning, excuse me here, is when we think of AI and its influence on our lives, often we think about something that is quite new, but AI has been around for 5 decades. I mean, a lot of us use AI every day, like Amazon or Netflix or anything like that. It just really permeates into our lives in so many different ways. So, as part of the presentation, I thought about, well, how can we give a presentation? How can we share ideas that try to address the concerns and interests of teachers? Now, the one thing I don't want to do, and Mary and James help me to make sure that I'm staying on track, is one of the dangers of giving a presentation like this is that there can be cognitive overload. In other words, you present, 254 different technologies in 60 minutes or less, and then everyone leaves the presentation saying that was just it was like an information dump. There was no time at all to process the information. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to cover today some general concepts related to AI, explore educators' concerns about the current state of AI in our lives. And the other thing is to share some techniques and tools that can be used in a very judicious way across the curriculum. As I already mentioned, I know that there's going to be comments that come into it. Again, Mary and James, if you see some of those, please just interrupt and let me know. But what I'd like to do is to begin with is I'd like to start with a broad question. And if Mary, you can speak to this very briefly, and then James, is AI a friend or a foe? Mary, could you briefly speak to that?
I think it's more about what's happening inside of me than what is AI. So if I treat it as a friend, it will be a friend. If I allow it to be a foe, it will be a foe. So
Okay.
it's really more AI.
And we're probably going to see that reiterated in many different ways through the session. Thank you for that. Jim, any thoughts on that? AI.
I think personally it's a friend for me. It helps me in my day-to-day do a lot of things. It's become ubiquitous in the way that I'm almost not aware that I'm using it every day. So I would definitely say I'm on the friend side of this, but I can see both sides.
More specifically, I'd like to talk about a couple of questions. And again, briefly, and as I go through the presentation, we'll probably circle back on these issues as well. But in what ways has AI had an impact on your work, student learning, both in positive and negative ways? James, could you speak to that briefly, and then Mary?
Well, I think the positive, of course, is speed and efficiency. It really has helped, in so many ways. Just even the grammar checking of my emails before I send them, I think has been very, very useful for me in terms of work. I think in terms of the negative, there is a bit of a climate, I guess, of of distrust between faculty and students now as a result of AI being present, where people are sort of doubting whether the work is authentic that is being submitted. So I think that has created a bit of an issue, but maybe the positive next step of that is, that we are going to be having a lot more conversations and open dialogues about both forms of AI, both artificial intelligence and academic integrity.
Right. And some of the comments that are coming in, sometimes as a friend and sometimes isn't. Someone made a comment about your comment just a minute ago, Mary. Another person said, depends on the impact it has on my life. Absolutely. And then Laura says AI is a tool, can be friendly or a foe. It's kind of like sometimes maybe AI hands you a gift in one hand, and then sometimes maybe you feel like it stabs you in the back with the other. It can be a real challenge. Mary, any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, like you said, we've been using AI for many years in many different ways, and I feel like it's my life. When the electricity goes out at home, I kind of enjoy the peace and quiet for a while, and then it's like, but I need the access to whatever I need access to that comes through AI. As far as my work, I have been using some AI. I've been using ChatGPT with an English course. We're doing an English for English teachers in Costa Rica, and they need to get a B2 or C1 level on the Common European Framework of Reference. And so I have been able to give them feedback that would be humanly impossible for me to give, and to give them like certain corrections and feedback and possibilities. And at some point, I'll be happy to show it to you today. I'm like, I think it's just amazing.
Okay.
In a negative way, for me, it's a rabbit hole. Like I just want to go deeper and do more. So I guess, and the other negative thing is to assume that it might be right. I think we have to always have a check on it. And I teach in a program in the United States, a master's program, and I've had some students in the past turn things in that really are just so obviously AI and not them. And so I think that really having clear policies and follow up on policy, and then checking in with somebody like, why is it that you're not really wanting to use your own head and do your own thinking?
Right.
So
it's interesting, some of the comments that are coming in, and we're going to circle back to this one. Louise says, one thing, it won't replace teachers. We're going to talk about that, in what degrees and what is its overall impact. I think that's important. I see a lot of comments. It depends on how it's used. Another one, it terrifies me. That can be, a real thing. It can be terrifying. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for commenting on that, James. So let's go ahead, and what I'd like to do. Oh, here, I love accepting AI as a friend. We need to get to know it more. Thank you, Yvonne. Well, let's go ahead and talk. And, one of the things I think about, I don't know if you were ever growing up or if you had kids and they go into the bathroom and they squeeze on that tube of toothpaste, and the toothpaste comes out. There is no possible way of getting the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out. And I think with AI, as there's a certain level of irreversibility, permanent change that permeates through our lives. There's just no going back. But I think what we're concerned about is how it can be used and in what ways. And certainly we could speak longer about this conversation, about privacy, about bias, about the quality and information. Overdependence on technology could be a real problem as well. Whoops. Teacher and job displacement. People are concerned about that. And ethical and transparency issues. I think, Mary, you were alluding to that in part about that. So as I was thinking about discussing these topics, what I decided to do earlier this year, I wanted to do a study, a brief study on the use of ChatGPT and how teachers perceive its use. Within my own institution, there's a lot of concern about how it's used. Some people are, like I said, terrified about how it's used as well. And it was interesting, earlier this year at TESOL International in Florida, it was like every other presentation, AI, the room was full. The next room, AI, the room was full. The next one, on grammar, 2 people. And so certainly it's of great interest to teachers around the world. So what I decided to do is let me ask you briefly, Mary, when you think about the role, you think the role is of a teacher will play in guiding students as AI becomes more prevalent. Any brief thought on that? Teacher's role in guiding students.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's the same role that we've always had. It's just a little bit more intense because there's a lot more access to information. But I think we're guides. I think we need to set clear boundaries around what is okay and not okay. And then help our students rise to those boundaries, because I think they're going to test us left, right, and center. And also, I think we need to be cheerleaders for it, because I think that our students will go off in directions that we cannot begin to imagine. And so we need to like follow them and cheer them on and say, wow, that's really cool that you found that. And, this has been happening, I think, since the internet, but, the teachers, the previous role of teachers being sort of the all-knowing has always been a false role. But in the past, I think it was easier to project that role. But I think this makes it even more obvious that we're not the all-knowing people. We are accompanying our students and guiding our students on their journey. So
good points there. Jim, any thought on that?
I agree with Mary. I think, our role is sort of becoming more like coaches and cheerleaders on the sidelines. I think one of the interesting things that, is coming out of this is, to Mary's point about not being the sage on the stage all the time, is that we're now kind of working without a net. We're discovering as we go and learning new things ourselves. And that can be a bit of a feeling of danger as you sort of lose a little bit of that control. But there's so much power in going through, that journey together, right? And discovering together. And I think that's where things will get really exciting and interesting in the future.
Yeah, great. And one of the things that I decided to do, again, if you scroll up in the chat, I've left 2 links. Number one of the link is to the PowerPoint, but the other link is to survey I'm going to be talking about right now. So earlier this year, I decided, as I mentioned, to find out, in providing teachers with scenarios, in these particular scenarios, which one do you feel most comfortable as being the guide, as providing opportunities for students to learn? Teachers from 17 countries responded. And basically, they were to rate the situation, the scenario, by level of appropriateness, using AI to strongly agree with that particular scenario to I strongly disagree. I'm going to be talking about some of those. And again, feel free to share regarding that. So first of all, I want to just share a couple of summaries before we look at some of the scenarios and some of the comments that came in the survey. I presented some scenarios, as I just mentioned, and then teachers could respond to each one. And one person said, I think my approval of AI used in these scenarios, again, we're going to look at some of those, depends on the specific instructions. What instructions were students given? Another one was, I haven't used ChatGPT much. And as we're speaking, I was speaking specifically in this survey to ChatGPT, but we all know there's tons of different AI services out there. The situations that you've given me have provided me with a wider view of how it could be used. And another comment was, well, in short, I think that AI shouldn't be the only source of knowledge, replacing reflection, replacing personal effort, and so forth. And the other thing, I think, which has been commented already, is that I think it can be a powerful tool, but a lot of times it has to be used correctly. And how do we define that? Within certain boundaries. And in other words, what are the guardrails that we've established and put into place? And I think Mary, you mentioned, and I think other people would suggest that they've seen times where students produce something and we're wondering where it came from. The question is, did we provide boundaries and guardrails in the first place? So let's go ahead and look at some of these scenarios. Oh, and first of all, I want to comment, and I think this would be threaded connection throughout whatever we do, is that as I talk with students, whether in student use or whether I develop materials on my own, there should be some type of statement of transparency that by doing so, by identifying what tools you're using, it promotes continuous learning. We're always evolving and developing, encourages open dialogue at how the information was collected and disseminated, a commitment to truthfulness and being responsible in how we share that information is key. So what I want to briefly share with you is some ideas in these scenarios. They were about speaking practice, vocabulary, grammar, reading, writing, and research writing. And again, Mary and Jim, if you see anything you'd like to comment on, let me know. So here is scenario number one. I'm just going to talk about a couple of these. Number one, again, I said to the teachers, Mia, a middle school student, is learning Spanish in her language class, and she engages ChatGPT, and you can do this, in conversational practice to improve. Maria asked ChatGPT to give her a question in Spanish, and then in text format, and then she writes a response, and then ChatGPT corrects her Spanish. And the actual prompt would be something like this. Let's practice basic Spanish, ChatGPT. Ask me a question, and then I will give my answer, and then you correct it. So what I asked with that particular prompt, I asked teachers, how do you feel about that? And here, again, one indicates that teachers felt very comfortable with that. Over on the other spectrum, 5 means that teachers felt less comfortable with that. So what does that actually look like? It would look like something like this. The student, after giving that prompt, asks, ¿De dónde? Oh, the question is, ChatGPT asks, ¿De dónde eres? And the student writes in, Yo soy profesor. Now, you can imagine that doesn't look quite correct, but you've given ChatGPT the prompt to correct it. So what does ChatGPT do? It says, oh, you need a small adjustment. Yo soy de, and then explains the question, de donde eres, ask where you from. Then it says, yo soy profesor, means I'm a teacher, which does not answer the question. In other words, the student used correct grammar, but not for the context. So in that particular situation, as I mentioned, teachers felt comfortable with that. The next situation is, imagine, for example, your student is writing a descriptive paragraph, but the challenge with many other students is that they were working with an empty box. In other words, if I ask them to describe their favorite restaurant using descriptive adjectives about smell, about what they hear, about what they feel, sometimes students have no idea on how to do that. For example, it could be something like the words like buzzing and relaxed and vibrant and mellow. And what ChatGPT can do is it can actually give you adjectives, descriptive adjectives, and then it gives you sample sentences. Now, the prompt I ask teachers is the student does not copy the sample sentences, but use them as models to write down their ideas. And basically, most teachers felt that type of such scenario where they create sample sentences and adjectives would be a more appropriate use. Mary, any thought on that? That type, your own personal opinion about using ChatGPT in that way?
I think it's, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great to have models, and models help us raise ourselves up to a certain place that, it gives me a vision of what to aim for. Right. I also need to teach students how to create, to use a model. Okay. Right. And how do I create something from a model, not just sort of copy, there might be some stages, I might change a few words, or I might go through and find keywords and come up with 5 other words that are similar. But I think that whole process of learning how to create my own writing after seeing a model is really important. And now
and you've alluded to the fact that it depends on the instructions. And sometimes people said, when I provided instructions and I didn't go into more depth, they sometimes asked, well, what are the other parameters? And these are the only parameters that were given in this particular case. But I think modeling and how you leave information, I think, is important. Oh, James says, I need to ask ChatGPT to help me with my Spanish speaking. Good luck with that.
I think, Randall,
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
thing to add is that I think the working with AI, ChatGPT is also, I think the best way to create circumstances where students aren't actually using it to create what they're turning into us is to either include it in the writing process and have them reference it and really get them to practice, but also then to create the final product of the writing process needs to reference our personal experience and reflect on personal experience and integrate theory with our personal experience or language with our person, so that it's something that ChatGPT can't actually do.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I also do is provide students with the prompt. So they know, I mean, there's a real skill to be able to create prompts to elicit the information that you want. But modeling, as you mentioned, Mary, about bringing in your own experience is something that ChatGPT cannot do. The next scenario was this. It says, James, here we go, James. James is writing a comparison contrast essay on face-to-face learning versus remote learning. He asked ChatGPT to come up with 5 ideas to compare and contrast. They're writing James, you're writing a 3-body paragraph, an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. He then brings these ideas to class that were generated by ChatGPT. He discusses the strengths of each in a small group, gets feedback from the group, and then selects the 3 strongest points. They're not the 3 strongest paragraphs. It's just that ChatGPT created and at least suggested the strongest points. And then the student discusses those in the class. And then, based on that feedback in class, he writes his own essay. James, any thought on that?
I mean, I think this is actually really great. He's, we want students to gain a lot from reading, to be able to use that input in their writing. And I think that's what he's done. It could be a different source than ChatGPT, a journal or an article, but this is what we want to see out of students. And the fact that he's taken those ideas and then built on them with other students, I think is something that's really a great initiative on that student's part. I'd love to see them reference that they've, where they've got this information from.
Right.
But I think this is a great way of building on, your knowledge, right? Often when we're writing, we don't have maybe the full cultural understanding of what we're going to be writing on. And so selecting different viewpoints is one way to get that information. So yeah, I'm very supportive of this.
And the one thing you mentioned too is you'd like to know where he got the information from for the paper he's writing. And the nice thing about ChatGPT is there is a feature where you can actually copy a link to that generated information, and the student could send that link or include that link in their final paper, so it references at least the source of some of their ideas. Laura says, speaking to Mary's point, since the advent of the internet, we've always had the risk of plagiarism with our students. So the tips she discussed, modeling, I think, is a really key point there. James, just so you know, most teachers felt very comfortable with that. Again, 1 indicates a high comfort level. Now, let's kind of go into some other areas. Maria asked ChatGPT to generate 10 alternative thesis statements for her argumentative essay, so she could explore different angles and perspectives. Mary selects the best one generated by ChatGPT, and then adds the thesis statement to her paper, perhaps with slight modifications. Well, more teachers felt a little uncomfortable with that. That ChatGPT creates the thesis statement. What does it mean by slight modifications? I think, we certainly could explore that a little bit as well. But let me go on to another example. Samantha, a high school student, is struggling with understanding Shakespearean language in Macbeth. She copies something from Macbeth. She pasted it into ChatGPT and then asked it to generate a simplified translation of difficult passages to aid her in comprehension. before performing the scene in the class. Many teachers felt comfortable with that. Here is another one. Olivia, a high school student, is preparing for a class debate on climate change. Prior to the debate, she asked ChatGPT to generate a list of potential counter arguments. Not that ChatGPT created her arguments, but that she would engage in a debate with ChatGPT so she can create effective rebuttals. She looks over the results to enhance her preparedness for her opponent's challenging discussion and arguments. Mary, what do you think about that? You use ChatGPT not to create your own argument, but to think up possible counter arguments, and you use that and engage in ChatGPT of let's say a debate. Any thought about that?
I think, I could go to the encyclopedia and look things up, and I can go to ChatGPT and look things up. Again, I have to double check the sources and double check that they're right. But it's like having an encyclopedia on steroids, it's so much access to information, and it really can help us think. As long as we include critical thinking skills and
Right.
for our classrooms, and we are also consistently include some kind of boundaries for ethics and support and guidance in that, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Luis says it's like when you are a chess player and play against the computer. Why not? I mean, you think about back in the 1990s when that was common. So what was the response from teachers? Most teachers felt comfortable with that. Now, I could go on, and basically there were other questions that I asked, but the summary was some of these ideas are absolutely great. These were the comments that teachers made to highlight how ChatGPT could be useful. I think it's crucial that we allow and even encourage our students to use it, but there should be guardrails, limits and methods going back to what are the methods, how do we demonstrate that, how do we model that with our students. And then as long as students are using a tool as an aid in learning, citing where needed, Mary, you just mentioned that as well. As teachers, we should be teaching them and facilitating how to use AI for their benefit. Great. So one of the things that with doing any of this type of use, I think, in providing models to students is that we have to help them. And I usually provide them with the prompt. So being a prompt that is clear and specific, providing context and examples. In other words, you want ChatGPT to create an example like this, include constraints like, what is this going to look at? How long of a summary do you want ChatGPT to create if that's the purpose? And then try different iterations to achieve and refine your results. In other words, if you put in a prompt and it doesn't give you exactly what you're looking, helping students and training them to create different ways of rephrasing what they're trying to do to elicit the best response. Davina says, while we live in a state we cannot ignore technology, consulting technology is fine. Whoops, let me go back here. I just lost that comment. But in moderation, I think it cannot replace humans. And Laura mentions about, in addition to boundaries and guardrails, we need to create follow-up, de-scaffolding activities to make sure that they got and achieve what we're looking at. Any last comment, James, about, what you saw there before we go on?
I was just reading some interesting work out of Canada where they were talking a little bit about open educational resources and the labels that were used to identify that type of material, and having a similar sort of classification for AI materials where, this has been researched with AI, this has been partially written with AI, so that people are aware of, exactly the creation model. And I think that would be a really interesting way of getting around some of these, guardrails and concerns about boundaries, is having a system like that in play.
Great. One of the things that, we're talking a lot about technology and so forth. And I remember when I started teaching, that was back in the 80s, it was like a piece of chalk and a chalkboard. in some ways things were simpler then, but I think the evolution of technology, as we're talking about, can really assist in what we're doing. And that's what I want to talk about now. In other words, as we think about the ideas that they shared and what James and Mary have shared about the use, and again, thank you very much for sharing your ideas in the chat, because that helps include ideas for teachers. Luis is asking. So let's talk about that. As you are all aware, and Mary and James, we could spend hours talking about how we can implement, how we can encourage use of ChatGPT and other AI technologies with our students. That's for another day, but I'd like to talk briefly about some ideas for teachers. And when I speak about that, let me ask you, Mary, just in general and briefly, do you feel that AI could complement and replace some of the work that you're doing? In what way? And maybe briefly share an example, and then we'll move on to some other examples as well. How is it helping you?
Even more than compliment, like it's letting me do things I couldn't do. I physically couldn't do. So just a quick example. I alluded to this earlier. So we have our teachers who have to pass the TOEIC with a B2 C1. So that's a boundary. Like they have to do that without AI inside of them to give them answers, right? So we have them do like an opinion question where they talk for a minute. They send it to us on WhatsApp. Then I use AI to transcribe it. And I'm listening to it. And while AI is transcribing, I'm thinking about the pronunciation points. After that, I use AI to analyze what level it is on the Common European Framework. Gives me the level. I say, explain why. Explains why. I have all the reasons why. I say, give me an example of the same paragraph at, let's say it comes out at an A2. Give me a B1, a B2, and a C1 example of that same paragraph. So then the teacher my student can compare those levels. Then I say, okay, now make all the corrections, the grammar, the vocabulary, and language corrections. So make them for me and explain them. And it does it. It makes it and explains them. And now all of a sudden, my teacher, my student, has a list of grammar, vocabulary, and language use points that they can study and practice. So it gives me the textbook from their 1-minute text paragraph. It's phenomenal. And that does hours of work that they have to do without AI. Like they can't, I mean, they could come back more feedback, but they have to work to take those corrections, internalize them, practice them, because they know that when they go to take the test, it has to come out of them fluently. So
you've said it very succinctly in a way that, yeah, it can do what we cannot do. And one of the things that I use in my own work is an AI voice generator that has ultra realistic voices. So you can put in a text and it creates something that I couldn't do myself as well. Now, James, I want to think about for a minute. There was a question. We don't have to answer this right now, but I want to circle back to this because right in the chat, there was a question by David, and he says, is it okay to encourage our students in the classroom to use ChatGPT, despite the fact that some teachers like me are not very knowledgeable in its use of these technologies? So I want to circle back because that might be something that we cover in the end. But thank you. Be thinking about that, James. And if I don't bring that up, let us know. Some other people are saying I as a compliment because I could write prompts to include vocabulary and reading comprehension to my lesson plans. Helps personalize teaching. Davina says, I'm a linguist, and I'm glad that AI-led tools are reducing language loss, especially in translation. All great ideas. And so let me share with you some ideas that I've done, and then feel free to share in the chat other things. But again, James, if we could circle back to that, David's question about just knowing how much we can encourage students if we're not familiar with it. So one of the things, and this is kind of speaking to what you were talking about in a way, Mary, imagine, for example, that I have an existing video. You mentioned about maybe a student speech sample, and I want to take an existing video and create a whole lot of content around that existing video. And how can I go about doing that? And one of the things that I think is that I see AI as a collaborative tool, like a co-creator in what I'm doing. And I think what it can do is in many ways generate different language tasks based on our prompts that we give it. And I'm going to share some example. But the co-creation or collaborative role is that we have the ability to review, to adapt, to refine, to enhance based on our needs and the students' needs, which AI cannot do in some ways. Yeah, you mentioned, Mary, about inputting perhaps a text and AI, generating something around that. I think that's great. Sometimes AI can't determine the emotional needs, instructional needs, the psychological needs of students, but I think your example was, was spot on. So let me share with you, again, keeping in mind that there are certain benefits, reduced workload it can. Again, Mary, you just said, it would take me hours and hours to try to do something like that. Content innovation of how we want to create it, scalability of how much we want the content to cover in terms of number of students, in terms of their levels. But there are challenges I think we all recognize about quality control, accuracy, bias that is injected. I'm going to share an example. Limited understanding of our own needs, especially your psychological needs as well. So let me briefly share with you some ideas that I've created. And right now, what I'm going to show you is an example of an existing video that I created. And then what I want to do, it's based on honesty, but the ideas that I'm sharing right now could be actually customized to any level. I'm specifically choosing something on honesty because on my website, my children have been involved with my website for a long time. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and since 1998, I mean, they go way back, but over the years, they've come back. And so sometimes when you hear different voices, you think, Randall, do you have 16 different children? Because it sounds like they're, different ages. And so my two daughters, Aubrey and Emily, created a recording for me on my website, and it was about, is it okay to lie? And so imagine that whether it's your video that you created or you find existing material, an audio file, and you were mentioning about this just a minute ago, Mary, about having an audio or video file and creating and generating a transcript from it. I'm going to show a couple of services to do that. But this example is an existing video that I created. But again, as I just mentioned, it could be anything that people create. So what I wanted ChatGPT to do is, number one, is create the learning objectives for this lesson based on the video. Create a title for it. Create pre-listening activities. Generate that transcript. Create comprehension questions in all flavors and types. Post-listening discussion questions. Classroom activities based on different learning modalities. And ChatGPT, could you do that? In 5 minutes? I'm in a hurry. Now, certainly you have to, I go back, even when I use ChatGPT, I have to ask it to refine it, anything that is produced. I think that is really important as well. So let me show you what I've done. First of all, here's the video. I'm not going to play the video today, but is it okay to lie? You can find it on my YouTube channel as well. And basically, my daughter, let me tell you, one of the things that comes up in the video, I say to my daughters, would it be okay if I'm dying and I have 6 months to live and I don't tell you because I want to protect you? And my kids were really strong. Dad, that doesn't help protect me. It gives me less time to process the scenario and the situation. So they shared a lot of things in that. But one of the things I want to suggest is anytime we use any AI technologies to create content, a lot of it, we have to come up with well-crafted prompts that are going to lead to more useful responses. And the other thing is that making sure that the prompts that you use, I'm going to show you the prompts that I use, minimize and reduce the need to have clarifications. It saves on your time and so forth. Someone's, Laura's mentioning, I love the topic. You'd have to watch the video because both of my daughters are extremely animated. And they talk about all types of things about whether it's appropriate. If someone has body odor, do you tell them? And my kids go into that as well. Do they have broccoli in their teeth? Do you tell them that? So anyway, So this is what I did. Number one, you mentioned this, Mary, and there are a variety of different tools on the internet that can be used to create a transcript from video to text, from audio to text. And one of the things that I find is that a tool that I might suggest today, unfortunately, might be gone tomorrow. I mean, they come and go. But the one thing I'm going to share with you is the one in red. It's called YouTube Transcript IO. The one Sonics is what I do. It's a commercial program that I pay for. It does a really great service. But if people are just interested in dabbling in this, this is what I would use. And James mentions Twee, good for translating short videos. Thank you for sharing that. If you have the actual URL, James, please put that in there as well. So with YouTube's transcript, what I do is I paste in the URL. And the nice thing about this one, not only will it give you a transcript, but with AI now, you'll see summary. And what it'll do is it'll actually generate a summary with actual situational, like it says, situational ethics, protection and deception, candid conversation. And all of this is based on not only providing a transcript, but what this service will do is analyze the information in that transcript to provide you with other information based on what you are trying to accomplish. The next thing what I do with ChatGPT is, okay, I want to create a title. So what I do is I take the transcript that was generated and I say, create 5 possible topics, 3 of a more thought-provoking nature and 3 of a witty, whether you need a title for your lesson may or may not be relevant. But let's say truth or consequence, the moral dilemmas of lying. On a more humorous, okay, the truth about lies, anchovies, monsters, and dead goldfish. Now you might, what it's done is ChatGPT has extracted that possibility from the context. And when I look at that, that might be some type of pre-listening discussion question. What do you think this is about anchovies, monsters, and dead goldfish? James and Jim, any thought about anchovies? What could be the lie there?
I have that is good on pizza, maybe? I don't know.
Dead goldfish, Mary?
Oh, I'm a little lost.
I'm sorry. So it generates anchovies, monsters, and dead goldfish. What could be the lie there?
Oh, that an elephant came into my. Oh, which one of these would be the lie for the dead goldfish?
No. But if you said someone's talking about a dead goldfish, what could be the lie when talking with a child?
Oh, yeah. The lie would be that I ate 5 dead goldfish.
Okay. Yeah, it could be that. I gave the scenario with my kids. Your son's goldfish buddy has died. What are you going to say? And one of my daughters said, tell him the truth. He needs to understand what death is all about. And my other daughter said, no. I'm just going to buy a new goldfish and just replace it and just go on with life. Oh. So that's what ChatGPT can do. The next thing is, imagine, for example, based around that same video, create 5 main objectives for a lesson on honesty and lying geared at ESL students. So what can ChatGPT do? It can actually create, objectives for you. Now, we would all agree that we would need to go back and tweak these, revise these, adapt these, because not all are going to be applicable to this particular context. But that's certainly what ChatGPT could do. The next thing is come up with pre-listening discussion questions. Is it okay to lie? And what ChatGPT will do is based on what they've seen, what ChatGPT has read and analyzed, and you were talking about analyzing things, Mary, in the example you gave, is what it will do is it will analyze the information and create these type of prompts that could be used for pre-listening. The other thing is, notice down it says cultural perspective, and this is where I would use caution. How do different cultures view lying? And then what you can do in ChatGPT is, are there certain cultures where lying about an illness is more culturally accepted? This is where I would, use care, because sometimes what ChatGPT is doing is trying to extrapolate interpretations of what it might be appropriate in different cultures. Here's an example between Japan and United States. And this is where I would have to, again, express caution on interpreting what this means. Is this representative? Is this information engendering greater bias in students? Those are all, I think, important questions to be asked. The next thing I want to share with you, I think is kind of interesting, is imagine, for example, that pre-listening, your grandmother gives you a sweater for Christmas and says that it took her 3 months to finish it. She asks you if you like it, but it's awful looking. Jim, what do you say to your grandma?
I would say, thank you, Grandma. It looks wonderful.
Okay. Mary?
Yeah, I would say, Grandma, I so appreciate all the effort you put into creating this amazing sweater.
Okay. Now, some people might say, well, I'd be a little bit more honest. But at the same time, imagine if we add this variable. What if your grandmother's seriously ill and only has a few months to live? Would that affect what you say? It might. So, here's something. Laura says, Graham, it looks so comfortable. Thank you. Now, imagine, for example, you want to use AI. And right now, sometimes as teachers, we use images, we scour the internet or try to come up with something to actually, do some type of pre-listening task using a visual. What I use is Designer by Microsoft. It's an image creator. And what you can do is you can add into Designer, it's a free service. You type in a grandmother giving a young man a very ugly sweater for Christmas, or the other prompt, a grandmother giving a young man a very ugly sweater for his birthday. And what does AI do with that? Here's the one, Christmas. Here is the one for birthday. So if, for example, you're looking at ideas not only in using AI, and again, this is not ChatGPT, but it's an example of an AI service that will generate images for you. Now, you might say, how much can it do? Well, I put in this. Jim, I think you saw this prompt before. An ESL teacher wearing a kimono, holding a grammar book, and a cheeseburger at Machu Picchu. What can AI do for you? There we are. Yeah. Now, you'll probably not use any of these, but this is what the power of AI can do, not simply for, for using ChatGPT, but can use it in a variety of ways. And here's where we can create images. Now, certainly in the PowerPoint, I'm going to leave these recommendations on using AI for images, and you want to check what are some of the terms of use. Again, you can see these slides in my PowerPoint as well. The other thing is AI, and again, I want to leave a couple minutes for discussion here at the end, but AI can generate questions for you in a variety of iterations and types, like multiple choice questions. AI can also create thought-provoking discussion questions based at different levels. And again, you would need to edit and the generated material as well. Also, for example, there are a lot of things that could be done with that. And the one thing I didn't include is you can ask ChatGPT to generate different activities based on different modalities. Tactile learning, it could be listening, to auditory. It can do all of that as well. Now, to conclude, and again, I think Jim and Mary, we could talk about a lot of different ideas, and each one of these ideas we could explore in more detail. But I want to talk about these last questions. Number one, I know, Mary, you shared an idea on how you've used AI. Jim, if you could speak to the question, and number two, in what way you could say, are you using AI? And then what do you think AI will have an impact on the future job market? I may cover that question, but I'd like to look at number two. How are you using, Jim, AI? And then we want to circle back to that question of that teacher who asked, I think it was David, to what degree should I be encouraging students to use AI when maybe I don't feel as comfortable and knowledgeable about using it? Jim?
So for us, we're using AI as a way of building our materials faster and from different perspectives. And so it's something that a lot of our faculty are using. We have OER, Open Educational Resources, and while it doesn't quite fit with that, it is something that we can use in the lessons themselves. And so it's a really strong tool for quick and really robust lesson creation.
Yeah, and I think it kind of complements what Mary has said, is just generating content, generating materials, certainly analyzing what they're producing as well. Let's see here. Mary, could you speak to that last question?
Yeah.
Someone mentioned at the beginning, I don't think AI will replace teacher, but the question is, what impact will it have on teachers? And what role do we play in using AI? Do you think it will affect the job market in some way as well, in a positive way or a negative way?
Yeah. I think there's a tension, and the question that I think it was a Dave's question about, what do I do if my students are into it and I'm not, or I'm scared of it, or there's a tension for us as teachers to how much do I grow and change according to, like, I definitely feel like it's my responsibility to know my students. And so like right now, well, to keep it short, it's my responsibility to know my students. And if my students are really into and using AI, I feel like it's my responsibility to learn about it. I really do. At the same time, like I'm thinking about what happened during the pandemic, and a lot of teachers are like, oh my God, it's not me to teach online. We also have to be authentically ourselves. And so if I think that if the context is changing, I might also have to find other ways to teach in ways that really are congruous with myself and who I am. So I feel like there's that tension of I need to be myself. At the same time, I need to know my students and serve my students' learning needs. And I think AI is critical. And I would say, this isn't nice to say that, just don't be afraid of it. Like, go for it. It's a playground. Like, to me, it's like going into this incredible playground. And if you treat it sort of as play for yourself, it might be easier to get to know it. And you might be surprised at what you can do with it. I think when I see it as only a foe and I kind of put up a wall for that, I'm actually cutting myself off from having like the opportunities that James was talking about in terms of creating materials. It can save so much time, and it can be fun and playful, as well as very serious and academic. You're not losing yourself. So I think that would be my encouragement or my invitation. And at the same time, if it really, really isn't you, then yeah, your job's going to be affected. You might have to find a different kind of job, that you can teach in the way that you'd like to teach.
Right. Thank you. Jim, any thought on that same question? And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at some of the comments that are coming in to wrap things up.
I agree with Mary. I think, one thing we often have a false assumption where we think, all the students are using it, they're all comfortable with new technology. And so often that's not the case. They're actually really nervous or, have lots of questions themselves. And so I think if you can sort of step back from yourself a little bit and open yourself up to that, I don't know everything, let's find out together. That there's real opportunity to learn together, and I think it would be so much more rewarding. So I would say go for it, and have those conversations, even if they're difficult.
Right.
Randall, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been doing a lot of work in Costa Rica on preparing our students for the job market. And I think the other really important thing is when your students, like, where are your students headed in their learning? What kind of job, what's their job market like? And is this a skill that they're going to need for that job market? And then how can you bring that into the classroom?
Great. So integrating based on what they need, whether it be jobs and so forth, bringing that in. Laura mentions, I think of it as a sandbox, AI. Yader says, we have to guide our students on how to use ChatGPT, because if we leave them alone, it might be negative in some way. I think we would agree with that. AI is, we should approach it. May says we should approach it with curiosity. I think that's simply what, Mary, you were talking. AI is scary, but amusing at the same time. As Mary said, let's go for it. I think that's great as well. Someone says, I love Mary's analogy of AI as a playground. Luis says, AI has the potential to make our job more effective by delivering criteria and grades faster. That's one thing that we didn't talk about is assessment. That's certainly a whole nother field of comments there. Well, I know that we're nearing the end. I don't know if, Jaime, we wanted to open up to other questions, or should we just wrap this up?
No. Let's open up the microphones. And I don't know if you have something else to show. Thanks a lot. So first of all, let me say thank you. It's been like having, I don't know, the three tools of AI talking to us. It's been like if you were actually the, I don't know, brothers or sisters of AI, but I am amazed. And I'm sure that everyone is, and everyone has many questions. And this is the first time we have 67 people. We are 67 people. So thank you so much, dear Randall, Mary, and James. So the people who want to participate, please be brief. Be brief because we got lots of people. We will start with Mona Ibrahim. She's been asking for some time to talk. Mona, go on.
Thank you, Mona.
First, hello.
Hi.
Congratulations for such really interactive lecture. Really, I enjoyed it. But I would just go briefly through some points. Suffering, especially as an educator, teaching students in schools and universities for 25 years. There is a problem that's really increasing, which is using a lot the technology. We know that very well. That's most of our generations, our learners, our students, going through their laptops, iPads, and cell phones, and using GPT is just ruining their brain, ruining their imagination. Most of the kids, they're not having even the analysis. We are changing the generations from human beings into robots. I'm not against AI. I'm with, but until certain circumstances, we have to make sure that the AI is just to facilitate, is just to organize some points, but neither to replace the teacher nor the student himself or herself. We have to make sure of that. And we as educators, we have not to go through and to encourage them to go through the AI, because students or human beings in general, they tend to be a kind of lazy. Someone is taking my job. So what? Let's do. Someone is doing my homework. And that we are going to change generations from hardworking people into lazy people. For this reason, but in a strict way and certain ages, even it shouldn't be used to lower like under 15. I don't recommend it, honestly. And again, I'd like to thank all the educators who shared their information as well. I'd like to thank you, Professor. I really enjoyed your lecture.
Thank you so much, dear Mona. Please, Ivan in Costa Rica.
Good point, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jaime, and thank you for the opportunity, Jaime, of co-creating with the facilitators today this conversation. Perhaps this is a question for policymakers or decision makers. What initiatives, programs, ideas do you see out there in the world to make AI accessible and available to everyone? This is just like internet. Not everyone has access to decent internet. And this includes teachers and parents and the whole community. So I'm just curious about this, because this is great, but not everyone is having or is aware about this, how this impacts learning and teaching. And this includes, my question includes people with high technology and low technology. Thank you.
One of the points, if I could, resource inequity is a big problem. Sometimes we feel that, well, you know, as I've, interacted with teachers, and I'm sure James and I'm sure Mary has, is sometimes we make the simplistic assumption that everyone is running on high-speed connections versus sitting under a palm tree somewhere, in a distant land. And sometimes we create content with the idea of only high resource environments, and we don't target the needs of others. So it's certainly a big issue that teachers have to be aware of, even within the same country, even within the same city.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Please, Divina from India. Go on.
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It was such an informative and engaging talk. I really learned a lot. My question is that is AI truly creative? And other than that, I would like to know that what is your opinion on the ownership thing as far as the AI-led translations is concerned? Yeah.
Thank you, Divina. Please,
Mary, any thought on that question?
The question of is AI truly creative? I don't see it as, I see it as generative. But creativity is a human trait. I think I see it as, maybe, you could say, the images that AI created, yeah, whether they were creative. But what I'm hoping for, what I'm looking for in my students is that they develop a keen experience of creativity and their own creativity, because that to me is linked to what it means to be human. So AI could be a tool in their my students' create. And the second one was about access, right?
And information, right? Who owns the information?
I think that's going to be, that's a big question. Absolutely. I don't have a simple answer for that, but yes, I think it's an issue. And I think resource accessibility is an issue. Just even access to the internet is an issue. And that's something that each country needs to explore and figure out what's right. How they're going to help their citizens and move forward in this world. And I'm seeing a number of countries that are creating like free access to internet. And that's like the first step, right? And the second step is access to AI for sure.
Thank you, dear Mary. May Ramos in Dominican Republic, I guess.
Thank you, Mary.
Hi.
Yes, hi, everybody. I'm fascinated by AI because I work at a university where most of the teachers are, on an age that they are not willing to be open to new technologies. And one of the conversations is the many trainings and many forums about AI, which is like a hot topic, like in the beginning, is that the division is so hard. It's either I hate it, I am not going to dabble in it, I am going to
I think we lost you.
Yeah. Mary?
I love it. I take advantage of it. Excuse me?
Yeah, we're listening. Okay.
I'm not sure if May was talking about sometimes there are extreme polarizing views. On the one hand, some people want to use it, and on the other end, on the other extreme, people say, I'm going to use it all the time. Was that, Mary and Jim, did you get that?
I'm sorry, it's my internet is not very good.
No.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. That there is this extremes where you're either completely like taken by it and there's nothing better, or it's like I am not going to even talk about it. And I think that the conversation should be on finding a way for both ends to use it in a way that is much more integrated with our lives, because AI is here to stay and our students are going to use it. And we are not going to be able to put limits on what age or what context or what, the ways that they are going to use it. So I feel that us as teachers, and governments, our responsibility is to teach our students and ourselves how to use them in a way that it is enhancing our our way of thinking, not replacing it. But we do need to start working on policies and on shifting that mindset of, yes, this is going to be here and we are not going to be able to do anything about it. So let's use it smart and let's use it in a way that is going to help us, not hinder our money.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear May. Please, the people who are going to talk, sorry, please be brief because there are a lot of people maybe who wants to talk, but we unfortunately can't stay here for too long, okay?
If I could real briefly with May, I'm concerned about teachers who are stigmatized or marginalized because they do or don't use it. Like, good teacher, use it. Now, I think there should be a broader conversation. So thank you, May.
We will have a second session on this, dear, if it's not an abuse. Dear Yader Scorsia, please briefly.
Hello, good morning, everyone from Nicaragua, Yader Escorcia. Well, I thank you for these excellent topics that we were debating today, the use of ChatGPT. Let me tell you that I strongly agree about the use of ChatGPT because I see that still many teachers around the world, they are like, they don't want to use it in some way. But remember that this is technology, and technology is going to be always there. We have to teach our students how to use it, how to guide. So I heard that students are using ChatGPT in the incorrect way. They are using plagiarism, but it's because we are not there to guide them. So we have to think about they are in preschool because technology is going to be there. We have to teach them how to use it positively, how to see mistakes in our tasks. We have to teach them what are going to be the steps to use it positively, and it can help in their life. We have to teach them that if we become depending on ChatGPT, it becomes negative in the future, right? The point is how to use it. Remember that before we didn't have a smart TV. Now we have a smart TV, and there are still parents that they don't know how to use smart TV. That's technology. And now the little kids know how to use a smart TV. Remember that before the pandemic, it doesn't matter how professional you were. Parents didn't use how to use cell phone, and the little kids know how to use cell phone. Now we have ChatGPT. We have to learn how to use ChatGPT, and we don't have to be close-minded and say, no, I don't have to use it, because ChatGPT is going to be there all the time. Thank you very much. We have to use it friendly and positive.
Yeah, thank you to Nicaragua, please. And we will finish with Roxana, Don, Edilberto, and Gabriela. Okay, Roxana Rodriguez.
Good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity. The first thing is that I want to tell Randall that I'm a big fan of his page for over 18 years in the career or teaching English. Thank you, Randall, for your big support to us as a teacher. My question is that in Ecuador, we just banned the use of cell phones in classrooms. And I know that Argentina is also taking the same position, and also some countries in Europe. I would like to listen to your opinion about it, because as Randall said, not all the schools have the possibilities to provide tablets, laptops, and sometimes we only have cell phones for students to make use of IA. So I would like to listen to your opinion about it. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, dear Roxana. And I know that in Ecuador you have problems with the light, right? Please go on. Who's going to answer? James, Mary? Hello?
James, was that something you'd like to comment on?
Oh, can you repeat the question again? Sorry, I was looking at the chat there.
The question is, what do you think about the prohibition, or that some schools have said that students are not allowed to take cell phones with them for classes? But as we have heard, IE is here to help us as a teacher, because he's not going to leave. So what is your position about it? Should students have cell phones or not, in fact?
And can you answer that in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I know it's a distraction too, right, in the class. And so again, I think we're looking to find that happy medium, where there's a time and a place where it makes sense to use it, and to use it robustly and narrowly, to make sure that we're getting the most out of the time that we have. I would not ban it completely myself. I think that there is opportunities. Maybe there's a point in the class, maybe in the middle of the content, to be able to use it effectively. But I do realize that it can be a very big distraction. And so again, putting up those fences and trying to determine what's fair, I think, is a conversation we all need to have. But
good point.
Yeah, thank you. Don Wink, please. Dawn?
Hello, everyone. Yes, am I unmuted? Wonderful presentation. Gave me just so much food for thought. This is an area that is new that I haven't navigated as much as I should and want to, and so I'm so appreciative for all shared here. My question, and I don't know if it's a question, as just would love to hear your thoughts. And to Davina's point about plagiarism, is Noam Chomsky has come, Noam Chomsky's thoughts on this is the greatest plagiarism in the history of humankind, and it will never replace human intelligence. And I was just curious to anybody's thoughts. Thank you.
Dear Don.
Real quickly, Don, one of the things that I use ChatGPT to is to resolve server errors and database issues when dealing with my website. So a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, Eliberto in Venezuela.
No, only I have to apologize because I was using my PC, but now I have to use my cell phone. I have problems. My problem in Venezuela is that I don't know, but I have problem with ChatGPT. So I had to use Gemini, Copilot, or Perplexity. What do you think of
I think use whatever tools you're comfortable with. I don't think you should hold back, right? All of these things can go into sort of the toolbox that make us the creative teachers that we are. So I think if you're comfortable with Gemini or one of the other ones, by all means.
Oh, great.
In relation to that, I remember when I started my website in the same year that Google started. And there was a lot of concern about that Google was going to unravel all kinds of educational possibilities, critical thinking, and so forth. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I think we all agree with it. There's a lot of uncertainty as to how ChatGPT and other AI will evolve. But I think careful and judicious planning and consideration should be part of that key.
Well, thank you so much, dear James, Mary Scholl, and Randall Davis. I don't know if it is possible a second session on this wonderful topic, something more practical, because everyone wants to learn and to know about this issue. And before your final words today, dear James, Mary, and Randall, let me ask our president, the president of our community, Raj Gill in Canada, to give her ideas and thoughts about this wonderful topic today.
Thank you, Jaime, and thank you to all of you that presented this beautiful informational session. My thoughts are that change is inevitable, as we know. It's going to keep happening. How we are witnessing it, how we're embracing it. Am I embracing it through the lens of fear or through the lens of curiosity? I think that will be the biggest difference in how we deal with it and how we work with it. Thank you again very much for this amazing presentation.
Thank you, dear President. Now you understand why she's our president. She's very wisdom. So, James, your final words today, and thank you so much for your participation, collaboration, and support.
Well, thank you. I really do appreciate the invitation, and it's lovely to see that people in the chat are asking for a second. We're all learning this together in real time, and I think the research that Randall shared today is one of those great conversation starters to try to find our values and our beliefs as educators and where we want to move forward with AI and how we want to work with it. But I've seen a tremendous explosion of creativity of people working with ChatGPT. Those pictures that we saw earlier. I think there's a lot of opportunities there to do some really creative things. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about it today.
So we'll see you on a second session, dear James, right?
For sure, for sure.
Thank you so much. Mary Scholl, please.
Thank you all so much. Randall, thank you so much for leading this and sharing your amazing resources. And it means a lot coming from someone who's been involved with this for so many years and has been giving for so many years. And James as well, thank you so much. I feel like it's been a really interesting conversation and a great start. And also just beautiful how Randall, how you also wove in the chat and how everybody had a chance to offer things in there. That was for a really beautiful example of one way of working with technology and AI. And I just will finish up with the 2 points. One is how I started, friend or foe. It depends on us. It really depends on us and how we use it. And I think sometimes when it's a foe, it's almost like, but I'm also a foe to myself. So how can we with ourselves in our own learning as teachers? And the second point I really want to make is go outside, get away from the computer. It's up to each of us to balance our lives. And this is not my life is not AI. I'm a human being with a body and a spirit and a soul and hunger and coffee needs. And, it's great to get outside and like, I am responsible for balancing my life. And if you balance your life with this and, the technology work world stuff with hugging a tree, walking your dog, being with your kids, having, face-to-face coffee with no cell phone, that's going to create a meaningful life is the balance. So go out.
That's true, dear Mary Scholl. And before our good friend Randall talks to us, let me remind you, our next session, it will be on October the 6th. Eugenia de Loza from Argentina, great topic. Teaching your students to think critically. And there are some people who are connecting for the first time. This is my WhatsApp number. So if you want to contact me for, I hope Randall shares his PPT and we can learn and keep on reading. So now, dear Randall, your turn.
Jaime, one quick thing. There are people asking about where the recording will be. I think lots of other people were interested.
Yeah, the recording will be in my Facebook account and also in our YouTube channel. So I don't know if you took note of that. Just a minute, please, dear Randall. Let me see. Sorry. Very quick.
You put the link of your page.
Yeah, you can find it like this, Jaime Kahima, teacher trainer, YouTube channel. That's the way you can find it in YouTube. Or send me a message through WhatsApp. And okay, it's our YouTube channel. It's not mine. That's the way it was created. I will change the name. I don't want to be the principal character, but it's just the way it was born. So thank you so much, dear Randall. Thank you.
No, the last thing I want to say, I want to thank Jim. I want to thank Mary, and for all of you being here today. One of the things I said right at the beginning is the only purpose in coming to a live broadcast is that you have a voice. You have an opportunity to share, and everything in life, Mary talked about that, and Jim did, is that involves deep and rich human connection. And I think when we can meet in this way, people can share. I apologize that we didn't read all of your comments, but one of the exciting things is about connecting in this way. And someday, perhaps, we will all visit in person as well. You never know. So thank you very much for joining today. And I'll let Mary or Jim or someone else lead the next discussion in AI, because I'm sure they have their own perspectives and can lead that as well.
Well, thanks, Randall. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, James, Mona, Luis.
I have one more really important thing I'd like to share. Sorry.
No, don't worry. Go on.
We have a number of friends who've recently been hacked. Yes. And they've lost all of their Facebook, Instagram, email, Amazon. Like, it's seriously hacked.
Yes.
So if you do not have extra security, if you only get onto your email or your website with just one password, it's not enough. And you need to go in and make sure you have all the extra security measures possible. Please, 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 please. There's a lot of hacking going on right now. I don't know. At least I've seen a lot of it recently in my life. And it's very sad and painful, and it's avoidable.
Yeah, and it happened to me 3 times, dear Mary. I changed a very difficult password that I don't even remember now. So that is how
can
difficult
I also add one more thing, if you
Go
don't mind?
on, please, briefly.
There is something that we have to keep in mind. Everything we share and we upload on social media, it doesn't belong for us. And even if we do privacy, okay, so we have to make sure that all the AI apps, the information that we get from, are just taken from all the issues the human beings put on using any kind of social media, using even websites. So to make sure we are human beings, we should use everything in moderation.
Thank you so much. Well, time for me to go and do the cooking and the washing up, and I think that is the same with you all. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and see you on October the 6th. Goodbye, Laura, Ivan, Eliberto, Raj, Norma, Otto, Evelyn, Graciela, Yader, Alani, Gabriela, Roxana, Nagor, Cynthia, Paola, Laura, Rosemary, David, Hannah, Felix, Tania, Leona, Vilma, Zulema, Lorena, Zuleika, Karin, Jessie, Mónica, Carla, Rosemary, Anabel, Noelia, Jarinet, Gabriel, Jairo, Luis Cuba, Mary Ramos, and everyone who has been here. So see you on October the 6th. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, Jaime.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.
Raj.
Bye-bye. Thank you, James, Mary, Raj, Randall. See you. Ivan,
Anytime.
goodbye. Goodbye, Evelyn, Lanao in Lima.
Thank you.
Laura, are you okay?
Me?
Bye-bye.
See you on October the 6th. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Don't get lost. Bye-bye, Mary.
Bye, Jaime. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Say hi to your dogs.
I will. You get hacked 3 times?
Did I? All right. Goodbye.